Hey guys, it's KJ from The Scariest Movie Ever. Currently, the world is on fire as the Antichrist approaches. We are living in the shadow of tribulation. There's a countdown that started, and it's only a matter of time now before it hits. The story of this world is about to be wrapped up. We're living in the end times, and currently living in the shadow of tribulation, just waiting for the Antichrist to take his place. I call it the quickening, because everything seems to be speeding up. Time seems to be speeding up. Events seem to be speeding up. Everything moving us ever closer to the end. Things really are moving incredibly quickly right now. We're seeing governments crumble. We're seeing leaders of governments resign. And yes, we've seen this kind of thing before, but again, it's a quickening. This is speeding up. It's unlike anything we've seen before, and I'm going to show you some examples of that, of just how quickly all of this is happening. Do you realize there were 7 collapsed governments between January 12th and January 15th, 2021? We saw the Dutch government collapse on January 14th. The government resigned over child welfare fraud scandals. We've seen the Estonia government collapse, January 13th, 2021. The Prime Minister resigned over corruption scandal in his party. The German government collapsed, January 13th, 2021. Chancellor Angela Merkel stepped down. The Israeli government collapsed, January 12th, 2021. Italy's government collapsed, January 15th, 2021. Many arrests. The Kuwait government collapsed, January 12th, 2021. And the Malaysian government collapsed January 12th, 2021. I've shown you in previous videos how America was built by the Freemasons to ultimately be destroyed, to bring in the Antichrist. They will rise from the ashes like a phoenix from burning America Babylon. And this will be that final beast system. It'll be that tribulation. The Antichrist rules. Of course, if we're speaking of the end of the world, and specifically the end of everything right now, we have to consider what they've been doing to the food supply, and more to the point, to the farmers. Here in America, many farmers have posted these videos where they're showing letters from the federal government telling them to destroy their crops, and they will get paid for this. And we've actually seen footage of the farmers going through with this to get their paycheck. I mean, they got to get paid somehow, right?
Well, TikTok, I finally got my letter yesterday. The letter asking you to destroy some crop. Along with the letter, I had to sign for a certified package, which included these 2 binders, and then, of course, this 3-ring binder on how to properly dispose of your crops. And as you can tell, it's on government paper. And as you can tell, this here is the affected area in my section of the county, closest town. And of course, you can't run away. They even know where you live.
This administration's agenda is to control the food and control the people. Biden wants to push OSHA into an extreme heat index for outside workers. You guys want to know what he thinks is hot? 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Let me tell you, here in Tennessee, it gets humid. And I push past because guess what? My girls still got to get fed, and that's my priority. And I chose this life in agriculture to feed you and your families. And they are trying to put fear in our lives. They're trying to kill off the American farmer. I know. We moved from California because regulations were getting so bad. And they were providing water to Los Angeles and San Francisco instead of the Central Valley. And they're doing it across America, trying to regulate our land, take our water rights. It is happening. It is time to wake up and start supporting your local farmers.
I initially heard about the government paying farmers to destroy their crops. I thought it was a load of bullshit. Well, lo and behold, we received our destruction notice the other day. So basically, there was 2 options on how to destroy the crop. The government could fly on Agent Orange, or we could manually destroy the crop ourselves. Oh, we put too much blood, sweat, and tears in it to let them destroy it, so we decided to manually do it ourselves. Basically, it said if we used a lawnmower to destroy the crop, we could receive an extra $600 an acre. Something about the low carbon footprint or something. So that's what we're doing. Now, they really didn't tell us how many acres to destroy. They just said, get after it and we'll be watching you from satellite. We'll give you a call when you've destroyed enough. So I better get back after it.
But that's just one aspect of this food crisis that's being created. Have you heard about what's going on with the Dutch farmers? Farmers in the Netherlands have taken to the streets and have been duking it out with police as the Dutch governments forcibly try to sequester their farms and kill off livestock in order to meet their climate change initiatives. But many of the farmers and ranchers in the Netherlands are not willing to comply with the government's move to ruin their operations. Dutch media, along with the government, have condemned and frowned upon these farmers for resisting the government's agendas. Over a week ago, the farmers' protest began to grow in strength and number as leaders of these coalitions and others involved began to start visiting the homes of the politicians involved in the scheme, to the point where the politicians' children were reportedly scared by their actions. Demonstrations began on the 22nd, with anywhere from 20 to 30,000 protesters hitting the streets to rebel against the government's compulsory climate edicts, leading to schools closing and road traffic being redirected, among other chaos. It's a coordinated collapse. Everything has to be destroyed for their, what they call the Great Reset. This is actually going to be the tribulation, where people are going to be forced to take the mark of the beast. It's a coordinated collapse. They're destroying everything. And of course, they have to destroy the food. It's going to be one of the easiest ways for them to control the people. Also, should we be surprised that so few adults want to serve in the United States military now? The U.S. military is one of our most important national institutions, but it continues to get weaker and weaker by design. According to NBC News, every single branch of our military is having extreme difficulty with recruiting in 2022. Every branch of the U.S. military is struggling to meet its fiscal year 2022 recruiting goals. U.S. military and defense officials and numbers obtained by NBC News show both a record low percentage of young Americans eligible to serve and an even tinier fraction willing to serve. The Army is having the biggest problem with recruitment. At this point, the Army has only reached 40% of its goal for the fiscal year. Officials are primarily blaming a couple of factors for the shortfall. The pool of young people that are actually eligible for the military is shrinking greatly, and the percentage of those that are eligible that actually intend to serve is also shrinking greatly. Traditionally, a high percentage of military recruits come from homes that are both conservative and patriotic. But thanks to the Biden administration and the Pentagon, U.S. military has become a politically correct madhouse. You can start with President Biden's Inauguration Day executive order prohibiting discrimination based on gender identity and sexual orientation. The order specifically opened doors for transgender men who want to access the locker room, the restroom, or school sports reserved for women. Under a DoD instruction, all military personnel must embrace the notion that gender is, quote, assigned at birth, even though human DNA and chromosomes in every cell determine biological sex long before birth. Doctors, nurses, and chaplains must provide or support controversial treatments for gender dysphoria, including lifelong hormones or irreversible surgeries, regardless of their own medical ethics or religious convictions. And of course, each June, the political correctness in the military tends to reach a crescendo, and this year was certainly no exception. Biden's proclamation on lesbian, gay, bisexual, queer, and intersex Pride Month sparked numerous displays of LGBT activism, including a high-level Pride Month event at the Pentagon. Marine Corps headquarters tweeted an image of a helmet sporting 6 rainbow-colored bullets. Air Force recruiting posted a picture of trainees running with a rainbow-striped banner, not the Stars and Stripes. And in Germany, Ramstein Air Force Base sponsored their second Drag Queen Storytime. The vaccine program has also been highly effective in destroying our military. Some 40,000 National Guard and 22,000 reserve soldiers who refused to be vaccinated against COVID are no longer allowed to participate in their military duties, also effectively cutting them off from some of their military benefits. The Army announced soldiers who refuse the vaccination order without an approved or pending exemption request are subject to adverse administrative actions, including flags, bars to service, and official reprimands. And we also have to take into consideration the war with Russia. In the past, serving in the military could mean dying in action, but that was mostly for personnel serving on the front lines in places such as Iraq or Afghanistan. But if our proxy war with Russia and Ukraine becomes an actual shooting war between our two nations, it could rapidly become a nuclear conflict. And if there is a nuclear war between the United States and Russia, all of our military bases will be prime targets. Jesus warned us that in these days there would be multiple pestilences, and now we're seeing it. Why are so many dangerous diseases suddenly popping up all over the place? Throughout 2020 and 2021, the world was fixated on one particular virus, but now strange new pestilences are erupting quite frequently. This week, health officials in the U.S. revealed that we are now facing one of the worst outbreaks of meningococcal disease in the history of our country. Health officials on Wednesday recommended that men in Florida who have sex with other men get a meningococcal vaccine following what the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention called one of the worst outbreaks of meningococcal disease among gay and bisexual men in history. 7 deaths in just 24 cases is a very high death rate. Meanwhile, polio has actually been detected in the United Kingdom. For the first time in nearly 40 years, health officials in the United Kingdom have identified a likely outbreak of polio in London. So far, there have been no cases of polio detected directly in the UK, but instead scientists have discovered the outbreak through an indirect route. They found multiple versions of the virus in sewage water. On a different note, a man in Austria has developed a case of super gonorrhea after having sex with a prostitute in Cambodia. Super gonorrhea poses a major global threat, scientists have warned in the wake of an Austrian man catching a drug-resistant version of the STI. The unidentified man in his 50s became infected after having unprotected sex with a prostitute while on holiday in Cambodia. A normal case of gonorrhea would not be newsworthy because there are millions of those each year. The reason why this new case is important is because it's a new super strain that could effectively render gonorrhea untreatable. Lastly, I want to give an update on monkeypox. On Thursday, the total number of confirmed cases in the United States rose to 156. Monkeypox cases continue to rise in the U.S. with 14 new infections detected, data from the CDC shows. The latest update by the CDC on Thursday brings the nation's total cases to 156, only a month since the first U.S. case was detected. On Russian television, there is constant discussion about how the conflict in Ukraine is really a proxy war between the United States and Russia. Recently, on their state TV show 60 Minutes, their host stated, "I have some unpleasant news. Even though we are methodically destroying the weapons that are being delivered to Ukraine, but the quantities in which the United States are sending them force us to come up with some global conclusions. Perhaps it's time to acknowledge that maybe Russia's special operation in Ukraine has come to an end, in a sense that a real world war has started, World War III. Nuclear war is not a topic that's brought up much on American news channels, but in Russia, it's regularly proposed as a potential option. Vladimir Avadkov from the Diplomatic Academy of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said, "You mentioned World War III and the way Americans and Poles are acting on the territory of Ukraine. Indeed, we need to remember the words of Vladimir Putin, who said that anyone who tries to interfere in the special military operation will pay a heavy price. We never forget about these words of Vladimir, but a great number of people are already standing in line trying to interfere in Russia's special operation on the territory of Ukraine. Turns out we have to act, but we're yet to figure out how we can act without conducting a nuclear strike." And just the other day, one prominent Russian politician openly talked about destroying both coasts of the United States with intercontinental ballistic missiles. The politician was joined on the talk show by fellow MP and Russian state mouthpiece, Yevgeny Popov, the host of the one-channel show. The lawmaker claimed that 2 of Russia's Satan II missiles would destroy entirely America's east coast, before adding it would take just 2 missiles for the west coast as well. 4 missiles and there'll be nothing left. In fact, for the very first time, Joe Biden has promised to give long-range rocket systems that are capable of hitting targets inside Russia to Ukraine. The United States is providing Ukraine with high-mobility artillery rocket systems that can accurately hit targets as far away as 50 miles. What an incredibly foolish move. It would seem that Biden has gone insane, but we know there's nothing going on there. He is merely a puppet. I believe the antichrist is pulling the strings of all this chaos right now. On top of everything else that's going wrong, we can add diesel fuel shortage and a nationwide electricity shortage to the equation. Without diesel, our trains and trucks don't run. And if they don't run, America's supply chains completely and utterly collapse. So even a moderate shortage would be absolutely paralyzing for our economy. Unfortunately, supplies are rapidly dwindling, and we're being warned that a global diesel shortage that will shock people could begin as soon as next month. Let's hope that there's a way that can be found to keep all of our trains and our trucks running. But even if an unprecedented supply crunch can be averted, everyone agrees that the price of diesel is going to go way, way up. Meanwhile, we're also being warned of potential electricity shortages in the United States in the months ahead. The Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, or MISO, operating in 15 states across the U.S. Central Region, said last month that capacity shortages this summer due to soaring summer demand might result in outages. Last Friday, California Independent System Operator, or California ISO, outlined energy shortfalls this summer because of heat and wildfires. Texas over the weekend saw triple-digit temperatures in some portions of the state, though grid stability was maintained despite several power plants being offline from maintenance. The Washington State Journal explains grid instability and increased risk of power shortages this summer comes as fossil fuel power plants are being retired more quickly than they can be replaced by renewable energy and battery storage. That's right. All this has to do with Agenda 2030, the Green New Deal, destroying fossil fuels and everything going electric. And going back to the pestilence, there are many mysterious diseases that continue to pop up over the last couple of years. Unexplained hepatitis is another one. The World Health Organization is reporting that in less than 1 month, nearly 170 children all over the planet have developed unexplained hepatitis. Nearly 170 children with the unexplained hepatitis have been reported globally since the first case was detected in Scotland. According to the World Health Organization, 1 child has died and at least 17 have needed liver transplants. If this was something that was just happening on the other side of the globe, most Americans wouldn't really pay attention to it, but that's not the case. In fact, cases have already started to pop up at various locations around the country. We also have Japanese encephalitis. Experts say that Japanese encephalitis will impact pork supply as infected piggeries experience production losses of up to 80%. There are now 30 New South Wales piggeries affected by the mosquito-borne virus, and 11 people have been infected, with 3 adults nationwide, according to a new report. There's also Ebola. In Central Africa, at least 2 people have already died as a result of the latest outbreak. Ebola has claimed its second victim in the Democratic Republic of Congo amid a fresh resurgence of the deadly virus. Local health chiefs are now scrambling to contain the outbreak, which began 2 weeks ago. We also have the H3N8 bird flu. In the United States alone, more than 28 million chickens and turkeys have already died since the first case was confirmed in the U.S. in February. But if the bird flu jumped into humans, that would be a worst-case scenario because the CDC says that the death rate for bird flu in humans can be as high as 60%. So the fact that the Chinese have just confirmed the first human infection with the H3N8 strain of bird flu is definitely more than just a little bit alarming. There's also a mystery disease that's killing horses in Colorado. On top of everything else, a brand new mystery disease has killed dozens of wild horses in Colorado. 57 wild horses, to be exact. The outbreak of the unknown yet highly contagious and sometimes fatal disease began April 23rd, the U.S. Bureau of Land Management said, The facility houses 2,550 horses, and now it's under voluntary quarantine. Have you noticed that the people are having emotional meltdowns all over the place these days? The people of planet Earth have become extremely high-strung and are easily offended. And for many people, even the slightest thing can trigger an emotional frenzy that can last for 6 days or even weeks. Obviously, the overall mental health of our nation and world is not in a good place right now. People are stressed about inflation. They're stressed about the widespread shortages. They're stressed out about the war in Ukraine. They're stressed out about politics, and they're stressed out about COVID, the pandemic that seems as though it will never end. In fact, one recent survey discovered that stress levels are at an all-time high in America for 63% of Americans, and they're blaming the pandemic. Conducted by one poll on behalf of Cove by Fieldmore Labs, the survey found 63% of respondents feel their stress levels are currently at an all-time high due to the pandemic. I feel sorry for those that have worn their masks and have been scared to go outside for the past few years. Humans are created to be social creatures, and isolation can be easily depressive. The same survey also found the stress is having a very real negative impact on many Americans in a variety of ways. With all of this in mind, 55% of respondents agree they're more burned out now than before the pandemic started. 2 out of 3 of those experiencing burnout say they're so stressed and burned out that they struggle to focus. In fact, 64% feel like nothing can really help them reduce their stress, and 58% think that healthy coping mechanisms they've picked up take way too much time out of their day. All of this stress has created an environment in which people will literally break down over the smallest things. Many Americans don't realize that the U.S. is already deeply involved in World War III. So far, we've spent more than $2 billion worth of weapons and military equipment to send to Ukraine, and the U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin just told the U.S. Senate that our military is constantly feeding the Ukrainians information about the location and behavior of Russian forces. He also admitted that the Ukrainian troops are being brought to the United States to be trained to fight the Russians. In addition to all this, a French reporter that recently returned from Ukraine is alleging that Americans are the ones that are directly in charge of the war on the ground there. Meanwhile, tensions between North Korea and South Korea continue to rise. In fact, North Korea just recently blew up a golf resort that had originally been intended as a symbol of peace with South Korea. Satellite photographs have shown that the floating hotel, part of the $75 million tourist resort in the mountains, was partially demolished. I'm entirely convinced that a conflict between North Korea and South Korea is coming, but I also believe that China will almost certainly invade Taiwan before that happens. And I think that we'll probably see a major war erupt in the Middle East before China invades Taiwan. We are definitely living during a time of wars and rumors of wars. Of course, the war in Ukraine is already causing a great deal of global instability, and it's made our emerging worldwide food crisis a whole lot worse. But for now, life in America is still somewhat normal, but how long is that going to last? Unfortunately, the truth is that our society is not emotionally equipped to handle what is ahead of us, and that reality should chill all of us to the bone. Our planet has been transformed in extraordinary ways amid the pandemic. Lockdowns destroyed countless independent businesses, while major corporations acquired obscene amounts of wealth. Family members were denied proper goodbyes with dying loved ones due to inhumane hospital restrictions. Children had to wear oxygen-depriving face masks at school for 8 hours a day. Billions were coerced or threatened to take an experimental form of gene therapy. Most countries responded to the alleged virus in unified lockstep. However, a few defiant leaders opposed these measures. These dissidents conveniently died and were replaced with obedient figureheads. Presidents who opposed COVID vaccines are dying under suspicious circumstances. Shinzo Abe, Japan's longest-serving prime minister, urged the public not to discriminate against those who chose to remain unvaccinated. Simultaneously, the former premier refused to mandate COVID injections and felt individuals should have freedom of choice regarding their personal medical decisions. Lawmakers made global headlines after executives announced anomalous metals had been discovered inside Moderna batches. More than 1.6 million doses were immediately suspended. The move prompted many consumers to cancel vaccination appointments and triggered an investigation. During a recent parliamentary election campaign, Abe was executed by a lone shooter. Jovenel Moise, this Caribbean president, declined offers for free SARS-CoV-2 immunizations despite the immense pushback from the World Health Organization. Rather than using pharmaceuticals, he encouraged natural remedies such as ginger root. On the evening of July 7, 2021, he was shot and killed by a group of men in his highly secured home. Pentagon officials later admitted they trained 7 of the assailants involved in the brutal attack. John Magufuli, the Tanzanian president, was outspoken about his distrust of PCR tests and the coronavirus inoculations. He notified media outlets that his nation would not be taking the mRNA concoction due to safety concerns and insufficient clinical data. He issued a clear warning to African citizens: you should stand firm, vaccinations are dangerous. If the white man was able to come up with vaccinations, he should have found a vaccination for AIDS by now. After making these bold statements, he suddenly died from a heart ailment. Pierre Nkurunziza, Burundi's leader, did not enforce restrictions when it came to pandemic protocols. Social distancing was non-existent, as he hosted massive rallies with thousands of eager supporters in attendance. Staff administrators informed reporters vaccines weren't necessary due to the high recovery rate in infected patients. The rebellious president expelled World Health Organization representatives from his country. As globalist fate would have it, he succumbed to a supposed heart attack at the age of 55. There are other notable deaths of powerful politicians that questioned the vaccine. All were succeeded by pro-vax chairmen. Hamed Bakoyo, Prime Minister of Ivory Coast, Didier Ratsraka, President of Madagascar, and Ambrose Dlamini, Prime Minister of Swaziland. Also recently, we've seen several high-profile resignations. Estonian Prime Minister just resigned, and this follows upon the resignation announcements of Italian Prime Minister, Sri Lankan President, and the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, as well as the assassination of Shinzo Abe. And of course, with all the chaos unfolding around the world right now, we have the LHC at CERN being fired up once again, just in time, right? For all the chaos and for the end times. There's a lot of mystery around CERN. I've covered it in many videos. Other people have covered it as well. There's also a really interesting connection with Abaddon and the bottomless pit, and the possible otherwise unseen connection with the Large Hadron Collider. I found that the town the LHC complex is situated in is called St. Genus Puili, but back in Roman times it was called Apolliacum. The town and temple was being dedicated to Apollyon. Apollyon, the Greek name meaning destroyer, given in Revelation 9:11 for the angel of the bottomless pit, in Hebrew called Abaddon, also identified as the king of the demonic locusts, described in Revelation. In one manuscript, instead of Apollyon, the text reads Apollo, the Greek god of death and pestilence, as well as of the sun, music, poetry, crops, herds, and medicine. Apollyon is no doubt the correct reading, but the name Apollo was often linked in ancient Greek writings from the verb apollimi or apollio, or to destroy. From this time, Apollyon has often been taken here to be play on the name Apollo. The locust was an emblem of this god who poisoned his victims, and the name Apollyon may be used elusively in Revelation to attack the pagan god and so indirectly the Roman Emperor Domitian, who liked to be regarded as Apollo incarnate. So is it a coincidence that the LHC was located in the very place where a temple town dedicated to the king of the bottomless pit, or is it by design? In fact, if you look at the LHC from the air, it resembles a lock, It also resembles Masonic symbology of the pyramid and the all-seeing eye, pointing towards the town that was dedicated to the destroyer spoken of in Revelation. So is this the lock that the star from heaven is going to open? That star, of course, being Lucifer, who fell from heaven, corrupting mankind. Our science to achieve his aim of destroying this apple of God's eye. Us. Stranger Things is one of the most popular TV series on the entire planet. And every year, the satanic symbolism gets a lot more obvious. Also, the entire idea of the show is all about CERN, LHC. It's about breaking through to the other side. The upside down. Our world is turning upside down. It's interesting that this is the most popular TV show on the planet during the end times, as we're literally seeing them, LHC, fired up again, trying to open this portal, which is the same premise as the television show. This is from season 4. And you're looking at this character right now holding the brick. If you look at her jacket, on the back of her jacket she has the all-seeing eye, and on the front of her jacket she has a representation of the Baphomet. This is also from season 4. This is one of the new bad guys. His name is Jason. As you can see, he's got his Letterman jacket on. He's a sports athlete in the high school. But what's really interesting is look at the H on his Letterman jacket, and you see something unusual there. Yes, you see a star that's perfectly pointed down. Big difference between a star pointing down and a star pointing up. It's a Baphomet right there. So once again, it's, as I told you, with Stranger Things, the symbolism's getting a lot more obvious, which once again is mirroring our reality. Stranger Things is all about the upside down, a dark other world, right? And that's what we're seeing with CERN. They're trying to pierce through dimensions, pierce through and create portals. In fact, if there was any question that you had that there was something occult or esoteric taking place at CERN with these scientists, you need to go look up Symmetry. It's a short film they made. And actually, here's a little clip that kind of explains some of that.
Oh, yes. And the film Symmetry encapsulates the esoteric occult mysticism and worldview behind the CERN project. The story begins with Lucas, who is getting increasingly bewildered and frustrated that his particles won't collide. He takes numerous trips back and forth from the collider, which is portrayed as this colossal, masterful creation divinely carved from man's hands. And after several trips back and forth, he still gets collision failed. He looks over his charts and graphs, which look more like sigils for chaos magic instead of collision patterns, and still he can't figure this out. It's not until a colleague accidentally causes coffee to spill on a chart of binary code, and through the chaos event of the spilled coffee, a pattern emerges on the pages symbolizing symmetry. An invisible entity summons him back to the collider again, and he receives a vision of a descent into what looks like the underworld through a beacon of light that takes him to a vast wasteland where he awakens inside a circle. This god of art is there. Then suddenly he finds himself back at his workstation, overcome by this experience as if he's going in and out like Neo of the Matrix. He returns to his charts and graphs, sees the coffee-stained notes, sees the symmetry, the pattern in the chaos, and begins to enter in random zeros and ones, which bring the collider to life. The face of the god of art appears on all the screens, calling him back to the collider. This seems to initially anger his colleagues, who are rejecting what's happening right now, and a chase ensues that leads them all to a platform that stands directly in front of the collider like some sort of altar where they all begin the cosmic dance with Lucas at the center. The cosmic dance opens the gateway to the abyss. They all descend, descending and ever descending, and now they are in some sort of primordial state in between worlds. It's creatio ex nihilo as they all become pure consciousness and merge with the cosmos. Lucas, however, becomes the enlightened one, seeing through the left all-seeing eye, signifying the left-hand path. He is returned to the wasteland, only this time in priestly robes. He has crossed the abyss. He has achieved gnosis. He dances the cosmic dance with the god of art of his own free will now, and she weeps at this divine accomplishment. Lucas has achieved gnosis. He's now enlightened. He's done the great work. Okay, I get it. But see if this analysis doesn't fit a little better. The wasteland depicted here, to me, resembles the Klepotic realm of Hermetic Kabbalah. Now stay with me here, this is getting a little deep. The Sephiroth is the tree of life representing the 10 emanations through which the infinite reveals itself while perpetually creating both the physical realm and the higher metaphysical realm. The Sephiroth are thought to be the channels of divine creative life force or consciousness through which the unknowable divine essence is revealed to mankind. Below, like a dark mirror, Klepotic is the infernal region, the dark side or inverse of the Sephiroth. If the Sephiroth is the tree of life, Klepotic is the tree of death. In Luciferianism, which is an atheistic humanist religion, embracing the concept of Klepotic is a psychological exercise for strengthening their belief system of becoming a living god. This is modeled after their archetype of the adversary, Satan. The Klepotic demons are fallen angels who know that light is wisdom and darkness is malignant and repugnant, so the practicing Luciferian desires to gain mastery of both realms.
And you can see right here's an example of how they've been promoting the show. Netflix is promoting it. But look at what they put out here. It's one of the newer characters, and he's the leader of the Hellfire Club, Eddie Munson. But he's constantly throwing up the devil horns, and of course they wear their shirt with the devil on it, the Hellfire Club. It's all pretty obvious stuff, but this is how they're promoting this. Now I find this really interesting as well. Back to Stranger Things, back to the connection to CERN. Different world monuments placed all around the planet. They're broadcasting scenes from Stranger 4, as you can see right there. And many of these scenes they're showing have to do with the upside down, breaking through that dimensional barrier. And you can see all the demonic kind of symbolism or the demonic creatures. And you see the pit opening here. And once again, they placed this footage on different world monuments all around the planet during the end times, as this very scenario in many ways is actually playing out in real life. Here's something else I wanted to show you. This is the most recent cover of Eminem's new album. He just put it out a couple days ago. And as you can see, it's another example of this sigil magic or spiritual storyboarding. We see this a lot with Illuminati artists or satanic sellouts, Freemason artists, however you want to phrase it. But oftentimes they'll do these pictorials, and there's a lot going on here. In this one right here, where you see the obvious, you see him doing the horns, and the obvious all-seeing eye sign, and he's got another one just below, another all-seeing eye down there. Of course, at the very bottom of the picture in the corners, you've got the 3 and the 3, so you got your 33, and we know that's one of their calling cards. We see 33 on everything. 33 is all over the coronavirus scam. So 33, it's also, of course, the age Christ died, but for these Freemasons, it's the highest level of Freemasonry. And 33 in those circles is considered to be a magic number. So we have some of the obvious stuff, but let's look at some of the stuff that's not so obvious. If you look at these pictures here on the side, right, like on the right side you see it looks like a small church, little country church, and over on the left side you've got a grave digger. I think that pretty much speaks for itself, because that's a part of the agenda, and that's what's on the plate for the sheep, for the Christians, is destruction. That's what this last 7 years, that's what the end of the world is all about. It's which side do you choose? Which team are you going to be on? And you only have 2 choices. It's going to be choose Jesus Christ or choose death or choose the beast system. So we see the death of Christians, the death of the sheep, the death of the church on here. And not only that, if you look just below his chin and you look at the city, I believe that's New York City. It looks like the One World Tower or a symbol for that in the background there. Look at the way his necklace, the chain on his necklace is going down. I believe those are vapor trails from the missiles. And you can see the strike behind the city coming up, right? So we're seeing New York City being destroyed by missiles. Where have we heard that before? And where have we seen that before? And I've got a little bit more on that in just a second. That's pretty much a breakdown of that cover. There's a few other things. They've got the jet there, and then they've got the ghoul. It looks like the white ghoul, or the demon, or the spirit over there on the left side of his head. It kind of resembles to me the real creatures that have been filmed over the last year and a half or so up in the sky. They're black, but they kind of look like that. They look like black smoke-type creatures with tentacles, some of these things. Really crazy. And those of you who follow my work know what I'm talking about. I've shown you at least a dozen different examples of those creatures. But there's something else I want to show you, though. This right here is from Madonna and the Eurovision Song Contest 2019. And what you see her on the stairs here is performing a ritual. I covered this in detail in a video back when this was first released. But these are the Christians right here. Notice the gas masks. But these are the Christians. And they're on a sacrificial altar. It's similar to the Mayans. They go to the very top. They would do the sacrifice and roll the head down the stairs, right? So we got the sacrifice of the Christians. See, Madonna and Eminem are satanic sellouts. We know this from their fruits. And these satanic sellouts share a hive mind. That's why you're seeing right here the destruction of the Christians, and we see, I believe, an example right there of nuclear destruction. Because these people know what's coming. The satanic hive mind knows what's coming. Here's her song, "Not everyone is coming to the future. Not everyone is learning from the past." So you can see the lyrics, sacrificial slab, the Christians being sacrificed, the gas masks. There's New York City's destruction right there. You see the destruction of New York City, because these people know what's coming. So speaking of New York City being hit by a nuclear bomb and a following tsunami wave, many years ago Jonathan Kleck showed us this on the $100 bill, along with other anomalies like 9/11, the Oklahoma City bombings, and the Hoover Dam being destroyed as well. And many people throughout the years have had dreams and visions of this attack coming for New York City, and the wave and the bomb. And there's more. Just over the last year or so, as I showed you earlier, the Russians are talking more and more about nuking America. But there's more. There's something else that just came out a few days ago that's very interesting. Just a few days ago, New York City released a nuclear attack public service announcement, releasing a new video instructing New Yorkers what to do if the city comes under a nuclear attack. I believe we're being front-loaded, folks. New York City is set for destruction. It is coming. It's also on St. John's Pillars in New York City. All of it's there. So we know it's coming. This is the way the Luciferians work. This is the way that hive mind of Satan works. So everything's put in place, and now it's just a waiting game. I made a video a while back, Life in the Shadow of Tribulation. It's exactly where we're at, guys. We're on a countdown. Destruction is coming our way. We're waiting on the antichrist to appear, of course, the 7-year tribulation, and all the madness that follows that. So if you don't have Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, I would ask you to please accept Him today. Don't waste any time. Don't wait. It's a must. Because once again, those are the choices that are coming for this planet. It's going to be Jesus or it's going to be the devil. It's going to be the system. And that's it. There's no other way out. So you've been warned. And destruction certainly is coming for New York City and the Hoover Dam and really the entire world. What I showed you today is just a little bit. These are trends we're seeing pick up. We're seeing just a little bit of a trend in all these different ways. The world is being attacked by multiple angles, from multiple angles. So I'll leave you with that, guys. Thank you, as always, so much for watching my video, and I pray you're doing well out there and staying safe and sane in these crazy times. So you guys take care of yourselves, all right? And until next time, I'll talk to you a little later.
They are so naive. They think we are not aware of their crimes. We know, but we are just not ready to act. The storm isn't in the air, it's inside of us. The wind that's beginning to howl. Not everyone is coming to the future. Not everyone is learning from the past. Not everyone is coming to the future.